going on, guys? I'm Lorentz from iWood Cosplay, and today I'm gonna show you guys how I made this. Okay, so just like the Chainsaw Man tutorial, we're gonna have another milestone to hit, and that milestone is gonna be 100k views, just like last time. You guys surprised me last time. We got way over that, but at 100k, the pattern for this will be free. If you need it sooner, it will be available on my Patreon to download. But done with that, let's get started on this tutorial. For this tutorial, we'll be starting with a foam kit. Everything will come pre-cut and organized like so. The only other thing you need is contact cement, the red bottle, not the green one. So we're gonna start with these 3 10mm pieces right here. We'll stack them together using contact cement. We're gonna use a blow dryer to speed up the contact cement, and that's all we need to do for the blow dryer. Once these pieces are dry and tacky to a touch, pick a corner and carefully line up the edges like so. There's nothing fancy here other than stacking foam. And we're gonna do a lot of stacking for this tutorial. Next, we'll need to cut out the following 2mm and 4mm pieces. The 4mm rectangle will sit inside this part of the body, and the 2mm piece will sit over here. We'll apply contact cement to the contacting surfaces shown here. We will not apply glue to this curved area right here. Do the same thing to the 4mm rectangle and the area of the body that will be going in. Once they're dry and tacky to touch, we will carefully line up the 2 pieces like so. We want these pieces to sit flush with the outer layers, just like this. We'll do the same thing with these smaller pieces, making sure they are flushed with the outer layers as well. With that, we've created 2 inserts for the body. So next is the barrel. We'll make this part with this 4mm piece. We will roll up the barrel like so that the details are on the inside. So using a heat gun will help shape up the barrel. Next, we'll use contact cement on the 2 edges, let them dry, and put them together like so. If you did everything correctly, you should have something that looks like this. This barrel will sit inside the body of the gun like so. Here's a tip: if you want your gun to not look so much like foam, then round off the edges using a polishing bit on a Dremel. It just adds that extra layer of oomph. So now that we have the body of the gun made, we just need to add some more details to it. So we're gonna start with the 8mm piece. So we'll start by cutting these 2 8mm pieces. Sometimes removing these tabs will leave an uneven edge. Don't worry about it, we'll even it out with a Dremel. So these 2 pieces will sit on the body like so. Apply contact cement to both surfaces, let them dry, and then put them together. The only thing we need to worry about is keeping the layers lined up. And if you did everything correctly, you should have something that looks like this. Do that for the other side and we'll have something that looks like this. The next piece will be the 6mm pieces, 2 on each side of the body. So this 6mm piece will have some engraving details on them, but I will show you guys how to add a bevel to it right here. Like, completely optional, by the way. So if this looks complicated, you can skip to the next part. So I recommend adding an L shape with the 2 6mm pieces that are not engraved. Using some painter's tape, we will secure the 2 pieces together. So using a 45-degree bevel cutter, we'll make this first attempt on some scrap piece. We're not cutting all the way through. And the link to the STL will be down below. But here goes nothing. And there you have it, a clean beveled edge. We'll do the same thing to the other side, except this edge, the bevel is only on part of the edge. Just like before, line up the edge with a straight edge, insert the blade only to the region where we have marked it, and then begin beveling. And there you have it. You'll see how clean the edge is, but once again, I know not everyone has a bevel cutter, so this part is not necessary. Here's a side-by-side of the beveled versus the non-beveled. What we need to do next is take that 6mm piece, not the engraved one, and glue it to the body right here. Make sure this piece is completely lined up. You don't want any gaps like this. We'll use contact cement to bond the 2 layers. So I know these pieces were scrap pieces for the bevel, and if you cut right here, it's not a big deal because it's gonna go underneath the 6mm detail. So put this piece on, just keep in mind the edges should be flushed. Now we just need to put on the second 6mm piece on top of it. Apply glue, dry with a blow dryer, and carefully stack them like so. This end will not be flushed, but the overhang is intentional so that this 10mm piece, which we'll go to next, can sit inside like so. Do the same for the other side and you should have something that looks like this. So to finish the details, we'll need to use these 6mm pieces right here. They'll sit in the space like so. You can either use super glue or contact cement. Okay, on to the next step, the bottom of the body. So the bottom of the body will consist of 8mm piece shown here. It'll sit at the end of the body like so. Then a 6mm piece shown here will sit underneath it like so. Align the two pieces and mark the position like so. Apply glue, let them dry, and carefully stack them together like so. So we're almost done with the body. So the next part is the top of the body. So for this step, we'll start with the 4mm piece and the 10mm piece, and they'll sit on top of the gun like so. Or do they? So this part I actually messed up on, but it's a good time for a break anyways. So after the break, we'll come back and I'll show you guys what I messed up on. So I actually messed up the size of this piece. There's actually 2 pieces, but don't worry about it. For your kit, it'll be fixed already, and for the pattern. So I was also missing another piece. This is the other 10mm piece that's exactly the same as the 4mm piece. They'll be stacked together like so. This other strip with the guidelines will sit on top of the other 2, but we'll come back to this later. You'll notice this marking. These are registration marks that will help align the center piece. So now that we covered that, we just have to glue them together like what we've been doing. Start with the 10mm, be careful, and keep the pieces lined up. Then we'll stack the 4mm piece, which is exactly the same size as that one, on top of it. And there you go. So going back to the other piece, we'll create a 45-degree cut like so. Do that for both sides and you'll have something that looks like this. This piece will sit on top like so. But before we glue it down, we'll need these 2 4mm pieces shown here. Cut them out and glue them to the sides like so. If you want a clean finish, then you can trace the position of these pieces like so. The outline will tell us where we need to apply the glue. Keep in mind the orientation of these pieces. Apply glue, let them dry, and carefully line up the pieces like so. The goal here is to get a flush top like this. So prioritize lining up this seam edge. Next, we're going to cut this 10mm detail. It will sit in front of the pieces we beveled earlier. So here you can choose to match the angle of the 10mm detail or round off the 45-degree. I chose to round off the bevel, but I think you can proceed without the sanding. Glue the top pieces on like so, still making sure the pieces are aligned like so. There should be no overhangs, everything should sit flush like so. And if there is, you can always come back and carefully sand down the overhangs. We're going to finish the tip of the gun with this piece that I've shown you earlier. This piece will sit between the 2 overhangs like so. This other 8mm piece will sit above it, and this 10mm detail will sit on top of it like so. We'll glue the pieces like so, starting from the bottom up. For this part, the glue should be a little wet so that we can adjust the position. But because it's wet, we'll have to hold the position until it's dried. You can use a blow dryer to speed this process up. Same with the barrel, it has to be wet to go inside. Glue on the top, and we're done with the tip of the gun. Now that we built the body, we can detail it. That's what these 2mm pieces are. We'll start with these pieces. This piece will sit on top of the gun like so. Using a heat gun, we're going to mold the shape like so. Because these pieces are so thin, you have to be careful not to burn them with the heat gun. Once it's been shaped, apply glue to the following region like so. Apply glue to the other side as well, and once dry, put them together, starting with this area right here. Carefully line up the edges like so. There should be no overhangs. Once you get to the other side, pull the piece over so that this area lines up properly. Secure it like so. Then you can begin lining the other edges up. If you did everything correctly, you should have something that looks like this. Finally, we'll make the front sight, starting with these 2 pieces. The position's already marked. You just have to glue them on using super glue or contact cement. Next, this 2mm piece will sit in front of the gun like so. Its position is already marked, so just glue it on. This is the detail on the side of the gun. Start by removing all 4 of these pieces shown here. This long piece will sit on top, the other piece will sit here, and this last piece will sit here. Apply glue like so. For this strip, we'll apply glue only to the tip end of it. Once dry, begin putting the details on like so. So here's the side of the gun with the details on. So that strip from earlier will sit inside the 2 inserts shown here. This next piece will be curved using a brass rod. You can also just roll it with your hand, but if you have a brass rod or something round where you can shape it, taping it down like so will help. Using a heat gun, while still hot, roll the foam like so. Remove the tape and you'll have an evenly rolled piece like so. So for this piece, we'll apply glue to just the 2 edges shown here. This detail should fit exactly into the region shown here. Do that for the other side and you should have something that looks like this. Okay, last thing we need to do is the rear sight. Start by removing these 2 4mm pieces and these 2mm pieces. This half piece will sit underneath the full piece like so. Keep in mind the orientation. The 2mm detail for the rear sight will be attached using super glue. Then the pieces will be glued to this part of the body. Okay, next is the cylinder. We'll start with a 4mm piece sitting here. We'll outline the cylinder edges like so and use that as a reference later. Here you'll see 2 donuts, big donut and small donut. We're going to glue 2 of these circle pieces together to create a rod. Next, we're going to apply contact cement to the small donut, and while wet, insert the rod we made into the donut like so. With everything together, it should look like a button top. Make sure the small donut is completely bonded to the rod. Next, we'll take the button piece and insert it into the big donut. Using a skewer or toothpick, we're going to poke a hole into the center of the big donut. And there's no contact cement here. So next, we're going to make guidelines on the back side of the 4mm piece from earlier. This piece will be the side of the cylinder that faces the handle. Make sure it's on the side with these markings. Apply contact cement to the corresponding edges. Let them dry and begin laying the edges of the 2 pieces like so. Before we completely roll up the side, we'll do the same thing to the other side that has a skewer in it. Carefully wrap these 2 pieces up like so. Apply contact cement to this seam edge, let it dry and put them together. The intention with the skewer is so that we don't lose the inside piece, as you can see here. This part is optional, but you can come in with a Dremel and bevel these tips like so. Here you can see a comparison between the beveled finish and the unbeveled finish. Next, we'll apply glue to just the surface of the inside piece, the surface that has been skewered. Apply glue to this side of the body. Before removing the skewer, make sure you're gripping onto the small donut that's in the inside, as shown here. Then carefully stick the cylinder onto the body like so. But that's kind of a weird way to make it, but you know, if you want a rotating cylinder, this is how you do it. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too bad, but hopefully you guys can handle that because the next part is going to be the handle. But we'll do that after this break. So now we're on to the handle. We'll start by removing these 6mm pieces right here. So here you see there's 2 pieces, but for my build I only actually use 1 because I like a smaller handle. But if you prefer a thicker grip, you guys can use 2. The other 6mm piece will sit on the handle like so. Keep in mind the front of these pieces will have these guidelines. Apply glue to the proper side and stack them together like so. The next part to glue on are these 10mm pieces. Remove them from the kit like so. Here's the hammer, the trigger guard, and the trigger. Start by gluing these pieces on like so. For the trigger guard, there's a groove here that will fit into the trench of the body right here. Apply glue and stick on the pieces together. Find a comfortable position for the trigger and stick it on. Finally, we'll glue on the hammer. Moving on to the handle details, start by removing these 2 2mm pieces. The bigger piece will sit on the handle like so. Trace the outline so that we know where to apply the glue. Along the edge, we're going to slightly sand the edges so that our finger can comfortably grip the gun. Once we've done that, apply the glue and stick the pieces on like so. You should have something that looks like this. Next, we'll just have to apply the other details like so. Do the same thing to the other side. Handle details 2. Okay, moving on to the next part, there are 2 pieces. They stack on top of each other and will sit on the handle like so. That 6mm rect is going to sit in this trench like so. So in this tutorial, I started gluing the 2mm side, but looking back on this, I think it would have been smarter to put the 6mm in first and create a full side profile. That way we have a full surface to put the 2mm on. So if you're watching this tutorial, you can not do the same mistake I'm doing. But with that being said, we just put the pieces together and you should have something that looks like this. Okay, so now here comes the round details. This part is probably the most technical part. It requires a 30-degree bevel cut here on this edge, and it requires a 45-degree cut shown here on this other edge. So I'm freehanding this to show you guys that you can make bevel cuts without a bevel cutter. With both sides cut, you'll have something that looks like this. The other piece is a small piece. The straight edge will be cut with a 90-degree cut, and the other side will be cut with a 30-degree cut. The two pieces will come together to create this part. If any part of the cut is dragged, you can always clean up the edges with a Dremel. So using a heat gun and the end of the screwdriver, we can heat shape the large piece like so. Put the two pieces together by gluing them together along these two edges. And there you have it. I'll have extra pieces for you in case you mess up or you need practice. That piece right there will sit on the handle like so. Outline the position and glue the pieces together. Some parts of the edges will rise up. Just come back with your finger and gently push them into position. And do the same for the other side. Finally, the hinge. So for the hinge, that's probably the most eye-catching thing we see in the new design. To do that, we'll start with 4 large circles and 2 small ones. These pieces will be stacked together and then sandwich the hinge when we're done. We'll start by applying contact cement to the surface that we will be stacking. So also make sure you pay attention here. So one set of those circles will have engraving details on it. Those pieces will sit on top of the whole entire stack. Next, we'll put on the 2mm detail like so. Now we're ready to glue this onto the side of the hinge like so. The circles are cut to the exact diameter of the hinge, so take your time here to line up the edges. We'll do the same thing to the other side, and we've just made the hinge. Okay, so now that we have the hinge, and we have the body, and we have the handle, we just gotta put it together. The pocket of the body, we're gonna use contact cement inside of that. So here I'm using a skewer because I'm literally at the bottom of this glue bottle. Just apply a generous amount to the inside of the pocket walls. And the corresponding section of the hinge. So when we put this together, it's gonna be slightly wet, so just keep that in mind before you start playing with the hinge because it will come off. Do the same to the handle side. Keep in mind that the glue is still wet. Firmly squeeze the pocket to grip the hinge for a couple of seconds. And that's it for this tutorial. A couple things I added that I didn't show you guys. Right here, there's a magnet, and there's a corresponding magnet that sits on this side of the body. So what that does is it allows it to go like this. Yeah. But anyways, hopefully you guys like this tutorial. Make sure you hit that like button. Leave in the comments down below what you guys want to see next and what I can do to improve these tutorials. As always, at 100K free pattern, so you know, it helps both of us. So let's just do that. What else do I want to say? I don't know. Much love, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.